Welcome to Coffee Times long interview, and today on the long interview we have the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Demba Sabally, who is also number 2 in the ruling National People's Party. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for welcoming us to your beautiful office.
Right.
And we look forward to an engaging conversation.
Right.
To begin the conversation, tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gomez, and thanks to all your viewers. My name is Demba Sabally, and born in Fonyi Bondali, and attended school there. Of course, did high school at the Muslim High School, and went to the Gambia College, School of Nursing. And from there, moved to the United States, where I worked as a cardiovascular nurse for over a decade, and returned back to the Gambia and went to the American International University to obtain a degree in medicine, and of course continue my private work until 2015 when we got into politics, and of course ended up supporting His Excellency President Adama Barrow with our victory in 2021. Graciously, he appointed me as minister, a member of cabinet, responsible for the portfolio of agriculture.
In 2015, His Excellency was part of the UDP. The NPP wasn't there, and I suppose you belong to another party.
Yes.
If it wasn't the UDP.
Definitely.
Tell us about your political career. You know, what brought you into politics?
In 2015, or shortly before that, when the previous government, that was the government of Yaya Jammeh, did a couple of stuff in the country. But when the arrest of elderly people and accusing them of witchcraft, for me, that was my breaking point. And that's when I decided to join the political party GDC, which was formed May 11th, 2015.
GDC, Gambia Democratic Congress.
Yes, for May 11th, 2015. And with the ultimate goal of getting Yaya Jammeh out of power. And I think we succeeded in doing that. Even though we were not in the coalition, our role in getting over 80,000 votes, majority, over 90% would have voted for Yaya, led to the ultimate demise of the Yaya Jammeh government. And after the 2016 election, close to the separation of UDP and His Excellency President Adama Barrow, realizing that if the current status quo continues, that is UDP departing from President Barrow, if we go into 2021 in that state, the chance where UDP were going to win. That is what brought people like me and many others, knowing what His Excellency President Adama Barrow have started doing in the country. Our vision of a leader was a leader who should give us peace, a leader who will respect the human rights values of our Gambian citizens, a leader who will be focused on development, a leader who will not be divisive. And we saw that in President Adama Barrow. That is why me and many others came to join His Excellency in late 2019, 2020 to ensure that come the 2021 election, that UDP is not a government and shall never be a government in this country in our lifetime.
What's the problem with UDP?
Oh, a lot of things. Well, we'll start off with their violent tendencies. And this is what scares a lot of the non-UDP people about a potential UDP government. They have a lot of violent tendencies. Their language is not peaceful. And we have seen this. This is very apparent to every Gambian. I mean,
so,
these are not allegations.
They are only verbally violent?
Well, even not only verbally violent. I mean, we have seen videos where they went stoning at Talinding, stoning the house of Fabakary Tomonjada. They've been involved in many other things. And even before the election in 2021, we have seen them form a vigilante group in black, going from one registration center to another, looking at you and accusing you of being a non-Gambian and just terrorizing the people. So their violent tendencies, I mean, are everywhere. And audios from purported supporters of UDP celebrating somebody who is sick, or let's say when Gorgi Mbubu was sick, they were celebrating it. When the police were shot, they were celebrating it. When Honorable former mayor of KMC, when he was sick, they had audios expressing happiness. Yankuba Koli. So this is public knowledge to everybody that UDP is a party that is inclined to violence, that does not speak peace. And even if those supporters are not executive members of UDP, but they claim to be UDP supporters, and we haven't heard UDP leadership come out and expel them or disassociated themselves with these kind of statements. So we hold them responsible for these statements and this action. And this is common knowledge to every Gambian, and this is why majority of Gambians rejected them in 2021 because of their violent tendencies.
Well, I know working in radio, we have received press releases ascribed to the leader condemning, as you say, purported UDP supporters who act violently, whether physically or verbally, insulting others. So we have to say that for them. But they pose the biggest threat to this government. So they are a force to reckon with. So
they pose the biggest threat to this country, not only to this government, even to this country.
Well, I mean, in terms of becoming the next government. They look forward to 26 with certainty, because when they talk about 2026, it's not a matter of if, but when.
Yes, I heard this interview. And this is the same way they spoke in 2020. And even in December of 2021, they said that it was a done deal. Look, UDP had 35% of the votes in 1996. They've only been dwindling down. Last election, they had 27%. So they are just going down. UDP had 200,000 votes at presidential election. They had the same number of votes even for the local government. For the parliamentary election, they had the same number of votes. So this is a fixed deposit for them, that 200,000 vote. That 25%, that is their vote. And that is fixed deposit for them. But nothing more, nothing less. The majority of the Gambian population are going to reject UDP in 2026. They will reject them in 2031.
Going back to 2021, they insist that 2021 was rigged. And currently we have a situation when a purported former executive member of the NPP has given an interview in which he apparently admitted being part of the team that rigged that election.
Look, I was an executive member of the political council. That is the council that was there even before NPP executive was formed. I am a senior member of the national executive. In fact, the first deputy national president. I was at the IEC for over 48 hours during the counting of and tabulation and announcement of the election results. The victory of His Excellency President Barrow is as clear as white. And the election system in this country is rig-proof. You cannot steal the election. Elections are local. They are. You go in, your registration is verified, you go and vote. Every party has its agent sitting there, the IEC is there, the police are there. Votes are counted and tabulated and agreed upon by all these agents, signed off on paper and posted right there locally. And that is why the political parties even know the results even before the IEC. And no political party has disputed the numbers. Yes, UDP went to court. They lost the case based on so many other factors. However, even UDP did not dispute the numbers. They may dispute circumstances, which probably, if they had gone to court, they will talk about it. They say we gave cooking pots to some Yai companies. Those were among their evidences. I was among the people.
As well as inducement to vote
exactly,
for the NPP?
as inducement. But look, which political party has not given anything to any vote? We did not give them cooking pots for them to vote for us. And they were not done within the campaign period. We are fully aware of the limits of the law. And NPP conducted itself 100% within the limits of the law. So for somebody like Demba, who was never an NPP executive member.
This guy who went on an interview to say that he was part of this team that rigged the election.
Exactly. Demba has never been an NPP executive member, either at national level, at constituency, or regional or village. And Demba was not in the Gambia for the entire 2021. He was not in the Gambia 6 months before election, during election, and 6 months after the election. He was not here. The Gambian election is not digital. If he is sitting in France with other people, how can he rig a polling station in Dipakunda that voters use marbles and it was counted on the spot and the results were posted for public viewing? It's unheard of. I mean, I cannot use any adjective to describe, the mindset of the man when he was talking. However, the case is under investigation and the police will do justice to the Gambian people. And I want to make this thing very clear. Every genuine Gambian should be happy that Demba is arrested.
Why?
Because if somebody says your national election, this is not an NPP election or a UDP election, Mr. Gomez. This was a national election of the Republic of the Gambia, for which election determines the credibility of a government, of a country. If somebody says, I was part of a criminal syndicate, because to rig election is criminal. Yes. If he confesses on television that he was part of a criminal syndicate that rigged our election, our Gambian election, not NPP election, not President Barrow election, rigged our Gambian election, I am surprised to see UDP people celebrating it. UDP people should treat him as a criminal because this is not an NPP election. I mean, a couple of parties, independent candidates went to election. They should all now be happy that the man is arrested and be investigated. Let the country get the clear evidence that, okay, this election was rigged. Or get the clear evidence that the man has lost his mind. That he has no evidence. He's just talking out of anger or any other reason.
Well, he's promised that in due time, he will provide the evidence.
Well, there's no better time than now that he's arrested and the police are investigating. This is the best time for him to prove. We are looking forward to the proof as NPP. And I know His Excellency President Barrow, as our party leader, is looking forward to the proof. Because we know 100% that this election was as clear as any election you can get. And the credibility is 100% and the victory is unquestioned.
You mentioned him.
Yes.
How do you think, he's reacted to this revelation?
Well, he accused the NPP, so it is us who are handling this. This is nothing to do with His Excellency the President. I mean,
he's head of the NPP.
He's head of the NPP, but he's also the head of state. So we will allow him to focus on dealing with the issues of the state, the issues of the Gambia. But somebody accusing NPP for a rigged election, we as NPP executive, we will handle that and we are handling it appropriately using the normal channels of justice.
He was not a member of the executive of the NPP, according to you. He was not even in this country when, the election was taking place in 2021. Yes. What could be his motivation for doing what he did?
Well, I think a few weeks or months ago, he said in one of the audios that he's out of NPP. He no longer supports NPP. And we respect that. Look, NPP is owned by every Gambian, adult Gambian who has the age to vote. You can come in, support, and if you have a divergent view, you want to leave, you can leave, and that's fine. So we cannot tell you why he said what he said. But I can tell you one thing, 100% for sure, that he has never been an executive member of NPP at any level, national, regional, even at the village. He was not in the Gambia before election, during election, and after election. This is 100% on record. And he knows that.
How useful was he to the NPP? I mean, did he do a job for you?
Well, he is a supporter who was based in France. making audios urging the people in the Gambia to support the agenda of President Barrow. He made several audios, just like a lot of thousands of Gambians who are in the diaspora who made audios during the election season urging their families, their friends, and their well-wishers to vote for the candidate of their choice. He was one of those that made audios, several audios, urging the Gambian population to vote for President Barrow. Other than that, I don't know any other contribution that member has contributed to the party. I don't know.
So you came over from the GDC, and now you're the first deputy president of the NPP, you're Minister of Agriculture. So somebody will look at you and say, well, he left GDC for NPP, but he was duly rewarded. Could he have been looking for something that he didn't get, and out of frustration, he left the party and went and said what he said?
I don't know anything he could be looking for, because he has not even passed grade 6. He has not gone beyond grade 6 education. So if you have not gone beyond grade 6 education...
Well, we had a head of the prison service who...
Well, we are talking about President Barrow's government. If we are talking about the government of His Excellency President Barrow's government, I cannot see any appointment, to anybody who has not gone beyond grade 6. So definitely, I don't think... In fact, during his interview on that media where he appeared at, he even said that, look, he's got a very good job in France. And it is going to be ridiculous for anybody to think that he is saying what he's saying because he wasn't offered a position. So I think the issue of being offered a position was not on the table. That's not his issue, I guess. And he does not carry the qualification, as far as I know, to be appointed to any credible office, political office. Nonetheless, he may have his own reasons, and like I said earlier, there is no better time for him to express his reasons than now. Let him tell the police or the Gambian population his evidence that the election was rigged, or if he was angry or due to whatever reason that led him to exit the NPP, he can freely say, these were the reasons why I exited the NPP. People come into NPP and exit, just like people go into other parties and exit. But let me assure him and you or all the listeners that NPP is the party of the majority of the Gambian population.
We are talking to Dr. Demba Sabally. He's the Minister of Agriculture, but our conversation today is by virtue of his position as first Deputy National President of the NPP. Right. You just completed the Meet the People tour accompanying the President. So from a political point of view, but also from, a policy point of view, you were central to the whole thing. Yeah. He's got a lot of, he's taken a lot of stick from the opposition. About the cost of the Meet the People tour and what happens on the Meet the People tour, the question of compins. What are compins doing on Meet the People tour? So it's gone from being an opportunity, a platform to meet farmers, understand what their needs and problems are, to a political rally paid for by the Gambian taxpayer. That's the allegation. How do you respond to these
Very baseless allegation. In fact, I had Usainu Dabo, during your interview with him, did not say he wouldn't conduct a Meet the People tour, because you asked him if he were to be president, which never shall be, but if it were to be, will he not do a Meet the People tour? He said it is going to be called Listen to the People tour. I mean, that is just shocking. But coming down to your question, the Meet the People tour is really Meet the People tour. And when we leave from Banjul, we cross at the meeting. The speakers includes the community, the youth leaders of the community, not NPP youth president of the area. It's the chiefs that speak, the alcalos, the imams pray for us, the women leaders. I mean, these are selected not by NPP. We have nothing to do with that. They are selected by the governor's office in conjunction with a committee that has been set up on the Meet the People tour. And talking about Yai Compins, as far as I'm concerned, it is the government officials that went with His Excellency the President, the ministers, permanent secretaries in some cases, or director generals, and we went to listen to the farmers and to a cross-section of Gambians that come to the rally. You know, the budget that people talk about, this year I think it was 30 million. the benefit of Meet the People tour seriously outweighs the 30 million that people are talking about. I mean, what can 30 million do in real terms when we talk about government? This Meet the People tour has given us the opportunity to hear from the farmers, from fishermen, from laborers, from every section of the Gambian society, what their issues are. What are they happy about in terms of governance? What is working for them and what is not working for them? And in fact, the president, according to the constitution, should go around minimum once. This means he can go 2, 3, or 4 times. If it were political, why didn't the NPP or the president take advantage of this and go around 2, 3, or 4 times if it were to be political? Or if it was according to the allegations of Usainu Dabo and his UDP. So the message for the Gambian people, and the Gambian people know this better than us even speaking here, that the Meet the People tour is constitutional, is relevant, and unlike his so-called Meet the People tour that he intended to even do while His Excellency was on tour, which is a serious sign of disrespect, that the president is on a constitutionally mandated tour. The resources of the government, which is the police and the military, are all deployed to create that safe and conducive environment for this constitutional mandated tour to take place. This is when Usainu Dabo and his team intended to do a tour, and they needed security. They needed some state resources, and it was not going to be possible. But the fact that he even intended to do it around the same time, putting himself at the level of a president, which is grandiosity, it just tells a lot about the party and the man.
But even when he was in government, he denied ever acting in a way and manner that would undermine the presidency. So why would he want to equate himself with the president, years after he was, out of government?
I had that interview. He can say that to those that are in the diaspora, but not to people in the Gambia. When he was on tour, he stopped around inspecting bridges built by President Barrow. He stopped around inspecting the Chamoy Bridge. What does he gotta do with inspecting a bridge at Chamoy?
Well, to see whether it was done right.
Is he an engineer? What capacity does he have to go and inspect Chamoy Bridge, whether it was done right? He cannot determine whether a bridge is done right or wrong. He has to trust that we have a Ministry of Works and Infrastructure with competent engineers that were tasked with supervising the building of those bridges. And the best he can do is to drive over that bridge and thank His Excellency President Barrow and his government for building that infrastructure, and not to go and put himself a par, or even standing at the Basse Bridge inspecting the rice fields, the flooded area, giving it a level of presidential or giving the wrong impression that he was going to be able to do anything about it. And he cannot do anything about it. It's just to waste the time of the people he was going with and waste the time of the people that were invited to come and meet them. But at the end of the day, it is the government of His Excellency President Barrow that can solve the problem of the people. And the Gambian population knows that. Usainu Dabo was a vice president here. He was a foreign minister here. I mean, let him show for what has he done for the people. Instead of going around and just castigating the government over and over and over. He cannot mention one single good thing. Even those roads that he drove on, he said he was the one who got them from China. And he described other roads in the combos as unlevel, that the Battle Harding Highway is poorly done, is not level. We have all traveled to other countries. We know roads that are well done and not well done. So I think the man is bent on just negativity. And this negativity is working for us because the country has now ruled him out as an alternative.
Has it?
Yes.
Okay. So the Meet the People tour is to listen to, farmers' needs and problems.
Yeah.
What did you discover on this particular Meet the People tour? Because one thing that stood out was farmers complaining that the yield this year is poor, and for that reason, even though the price the Gambia offers is said to be the best in the sub-region, they still wanted a bit more. Is the government going to yield to them and give more?
Actually, I must thank the farmers of the Gambia for being on the field and providing us with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Even though it's 50% of our food is local and the other 50% is imported. The groundnut yield this year was the key issue during His Excellency's Meet the People tour. The yields have been found to be low, and as a ministry responsible or tasked with food security, we've already engaged our scientists to establish realistically what led to the low yield. And tentatively, the reports are pointing towards climate change. And of course, there are people who have gotten very good yields, and the ones with poor yield, the comparison right now is early planters and late planters. Also, there was a 16-day drought spell during the rainy season, and that has also been pointed to as a potential cause. Other factors include our gene pool itself. These groundnut seeds that we used in 2024 being the same gene pool for the past 50 years. So in genetics, after a while, it deteriorates. So it is a suspect. And already we've started engaging a couple of very credible universities. The University of Georgia are going to be here in February. The University of South Carolina, who are world-renowned specialists in groundnut, were here last week. They're working with NARI, and my team, NARI, the DG and the team, were in South Carolina last month. So we are also working with FAO and other agencies and organizations to establish and probably transition into a different gene pool of groundnuts, because it is suspected that the variety we have, the gene might have been too old now.
Are you going to give the groundnut farmers a bit more for their tonnage?
Look, I think the government has gone above and beyond, because not only are the yields not high enough, but the quality of the nuts themselves are very low. Despite the low quality of the nuts, the groundnuts, the government has still offered a price better than any price around the sub-region. And this is on top. Look, every kilo that we buy from the farmer at $38 per kilo, government is going to sell this to the international market at a maximum of about $20 per kilo.
Oh, wow.
So government is subsidizing $18 per kilo, which is $18,000 for every ton that we buy from the farmers. Not only are we offering them the best price, but government is highly subsidizing. Last year, we spent $1.5 billion to buy groundnut from every possible farmer in this country, who presented their nuts at the designated secos within the designated period of the season. And it costed the government $1.5 billion. Nearly half of that is subsidy. So I think our price is still the best in the sub-region, despite all the challenges.
And you're not even going to add one butut on top of the $38 per kilo or 38,000 per ton.
For now, I think we are sticking with the 38,000. And the farmers, this morning we just had a meeting with the Gambia Farmers Union, the NECOFAG, which is the umbrella body of the farmer organizations. And there is no complaint about price. They are happy because they understand all the factors surrounding the pricing structure itself. And there are always, and this year was no exception, a price consultation forum that we do in Genoa every year, even before the price announcement. And we were there with almost all the representatives of farmer organizations, and this price was not a bad idea, and still not.
Not a bad idea, but the secos seem to be having problem, getting money. I mean, there have been a few reports of URR not getting, secos in URR not getting money, I think NBR and, elsewhere. When you sit here in your office and read those reports, I mean, what action do you take, if any?
Well, the actions are, like I told you this morning, the meeting included Q Group, Q Money, Gambia Farmers Union, GGC, Ministry of Finance, Agriculture, at our conference room. And that's what generated this meeting, is reports coming from the corners, from all across the country, about farmers having difficulties accessing their money. So I wanted to know firsthand from the farmer representatives what are the problems. Then I can now hear from GGC and their financial partners, which is Q Group, on what is being done and what needs to be done. Apparently, this year we are using Q money to pay farmers. Senegal is using 100% orange money. And last year, this government lost $46 million because we were using liquid cash. And the loss is immense. $46 million out of this budget is substantial. And it was difficult to pinpoint. Is it the cooperative presidents, some of whom are really quite aged now, 70s and 80s? Is it their clerks? Is it the GGC staff? Is it the Q Group Ajib Bank clerks? So it is a very complex thing to supervise if you are dealing with liquid cash. This year, we had a meeting, stakeholder meeting, including all the 95 cooperative SECOs in the country, the SECO presidents, their apex bodies, that we are going to introduce Q money. And not because we preferred Q money, all other platforms were invited. And the most responsive was Q money. Because questions will be raised after this interview that, okay, why Q money? Do we have special interest? I have had I had an audio even associating this to some other elements like why Q money. It was because this was open and they became the most responsive and GGC chose them after a process. And what happens is all the SECOs, instead of depositing liquid cash, when you bring your groundnuts, they are weighed and you are credited with an amount and the fees are waived. No farmer pays withdrawal fees. If your groundnuts are $10,000, we have signed an MOU with other financial institutions, Easy Pay, Reliance, the commercial banks. You can go to any of these institutions. You don't have to go to Q Group payout. Of course, you can go to any Q Group payout. But if you choose to go to any other financial institution, you still go ahead and get your $10,000. The charges are paid for by the GGC and the ministry. So I think it's a matter of sensitization. This is new, it's digital. Most of our farmers are not very literate. And change is a challenge. And it takes a while for people to adopt it. And that is why you hear there a lot of noise around. We've asked our technicians to increase the sensitization. And also, one of the problems that was identified was the limited number of Q money agents. And also the limited amount of money that is available with that agent itself. Q Group and Q Money are aware of these challenges. We just concluded a meeting. And I think they are on the field and it will improve over the weekend. And Monday we have scheduled another meeting with the Q Group CEO himself will be having a meeting with me. All this is geared towards solving the problem. And also, His Excellency President Adama Barrow is aware of the audios and all the noise that is out there. And he has specifically instructed us to do whatever it takes to solve the problem of the farmers, make sure they access their money and access it in the easiest way and time possible. So we are working towards that.
If groundnut is not possible, if the price you buy at locally is only worth half the value on the international stage, why do we keep encouraging our farmers to grow groundnuts? Why can't they transition to some other crops?
Exactly. That's a very, very good question. But Peter, every Gambian grew up seeing groundnut. Groundnut is beyond a cash crop. Groundnut is everything Gambia.
It's a national emblem, if you like.
Exactly. So that's a challenge. However, as a ministry, that's why during the tour, you saw us doing matching grant. We disbursed millions. In fact, during the tour alone, we disbursed about $124 million from one of the agricultural projects, Giraffe, funded by the World Bank and the government of the Gambia. No beneficiary was there that is a groundnut producer. 100%. because the beneficiaries are cashew, poultry, and the like. Because we want people to transition. And that transition is going to take time. Look, a kilo of cashew is a lot more expensive than a kilo of groundnut. And the cashew tree is going to be there for the next 50, 60 years. It is a lot less labor intensive. However, groundnut has been our cultural, finance, economic crop. It's been everything Gambia. So it's a process, it's a transitional phase that we are talking with the farmers. And the young ones, the young farmers, are into vegetable production, they are into cashew, they are into onion, they are into poultry, because it's more high value, it's a lot more money, but it's going to take a while to transition. But we are fully aware of this statement, and we are catching up to it.
And of course, the issue of agriculture being the backbone of the Gambian economy, yet that is not reflected in the budget, also came up. And not just from politicians,
Yes.
even economists, look at the budget and say, well, we are not being serious as we are meant to be. If we say, we are all about agriculture and agrarian economy, look at what goes to the president's office, compare it with what's been given
To agriculture.
to agriculture.
Yes. Look, I think I've had this, but I'm really thankful for the opportunity that you have given to put.
Well, we want to be enlightened.
Exactly. Because let's say in 2025, the Ministry of Agriculture is allocated 890 million, which is about 2.39 or thereabout, little less than 3% of the budget. Okay. The Ministry of Agriculture currently implementing about 9 projects that are funded by either World Bank, African Development Bank, ISDB, and a couple of other donor partners, IFAD. The Roots project is funded by IFAD. It's about 80 million, for 5 years period. The Giraffe project initially was 40 million with an additional financing of 68 million. So if you put together all that portfolio of all the 8-9 projects under my ministry, you're talking about 300 or so million dollars. No international donor is going to take money and fund the office of the president. World Bank or IFAD is not going to go ahead and fund, other agencies, let's say the public service or trade or somewhere. But these international agencies, knowing that agriculture is the backbone of the country, they are investing millions together with the budget of the government of the Gambia. So the working theory here is, if we have the potential as agriculture, we have the potential to attract millions of dollars from donor partners, then the meager resource that the government have, the small envelope, why don't we invest a bigger chunk of that in other areas that are less likely to be funded by international agencies? I mean, no government agency has $300 million in their budget. But the Ministry of Agriculture, yes, we have $800 million, but in terms of dollar value, we have a lot more millions in dollar value in our projects to support the work of the Ministry of Agriculture. And so that issue of the percentage that the government GLF is about 3% or less for agriculture and about 7% in other sectors. If you look at it from the surface of things, that is what it will look like to you. But if you are an insider, you will understand that if you have $10 and you are more likely to be subsidized by a brother overseas with $50, you might as well allow your other brothers to take $7, $8. You will be okay with your $2 or $1, knowing that the big brother will subsidize you with $50. This is the scenario, and that explains why we are around 3%. But 80 or 90% of our implementations are donor-funded implementations. And the government of the Gambia, of course, as co-funders. This is the context, and not because government has not given agriculture a priority. The biggest priority of His Excellency President Adama Barrow is agriculture, electricity, and roads.
So there is enough money in agriculture?
There shall never be enough money, but there is money to work with to implement the current goals of the ministry. Of course, these projects, their funding is controlled. Also, a little bit more complicated. If today we want to buy 100 tractors, it would have been easy if it was in the GLF, that is from the Ministry of Finance, right to Ministry of Finance, we want to launch a tender and buy 100 tractors. It's a lot more easier than if we want to buy tractors using monies from a project. If it was not in the project design, it won't be there. As much as you want to buy the tractors, you will not get the tractors. Whatever was not designed when the project was being designed will not be, you can't not go ahead and do that. So yes, but yeah, there is money to implement as much as we desire. And our donor partners understand that, they're working with us. And I think what we have, it's a developing country, it's a tax-based economy, and we are dealing with it as a government. We look at things holistically, not by sectors.
You speak of tractors. I think there's a commitment to bring X number of tractors in 2025. How many?
180.
180.
Yes.
To do what? Because we've just said that, the groundnut yield is dwindling year in, year out. And then your government gets criticized for virtually killing rice production in this country. Everybody talks about being to Jahali Pachar and just having their hearts broken. The GFA leader, the UDP leader, and others.
Yes.
And I remember as a young reporter in Radio Gambia, Jahali Pachar, was in the news all the time.
Can you do me a favor? Can you send a reporter to Jahali Pachar so that you don't listen to people like Usainu Dabo or people like Bakari Dabo who are spent bullets? They've outlived their value. Like Bakari Dabo, he was vice president, he was minister of finance, he was ambassador to Belgium. What can he show us? What has he done for the Gambian people?
All he said was during his time, Jahali Pachar was
what?
Producing a lot of rice. Now it's...
Can he tell us the tonnage?
It's as good as...
Look, the records are there to speak for themselves. If you go to Jahali Pachar today, we are doing both rainy season and dry season production. Jahali Pachar, the gates are being fixed currently by the Roots project. In fact, the entire area was plowed by the government at no cost to farmers or at a highly subsidized rate. They're giving fertilizer, they're giving seeds at no cost. The amount of investment that the government of President Barrow has done in Jahali Pachar is unprecedented and has never been done by any government. What I can assure you is the records are there to show. In fact, the amount of rice that is being produced locally in the Gambia for the past 5 years, year on, year out, from 22, 23, 24, and going into 25, it has just been increasing. In fact, from 2023 to 2024, we increased by 12%. And Jahali Pachar is no exception. And when you say these tractors for what? Look, we are seriously investing in rice production and also in maize production. And these are both upland and in lowland. And that is why the need for tractors in this country is in thousands of tractors. Of course, government can be bringing in segment. That's why in 2025, the intention is to bring in 180 tractors. This is going to boost our productivity in multiple folds because we know the challenge when the rain starts. We know the pressure that we go through for pressures on demand for tractor services. We only have 50 tractors currently under the government fleet, and that is not even enough for one region. 50 tractors is not even enough for North Bank alone, not to talk about CRR North and South. So there's immense need for tractors, and we recognize that. And the results for rice production and maize production, the records are available under the Department of Planning, and I think they speak for themselves.
And is there any way of identifying what region is best for what crop and encouraging farmers in the region to concentrate on producing that crop rather than somebody in an area where groundnuts don't do well trying to grow groundnuts?
Good. We have a project under the Ministry of Agriculture. It's called the Soil Fertility Mapping. It is a $1 million project funded by the Islamic Development Bank. It is being implemented by the ministry under the CPCU, that is the Central Project Coordinating Unit. The project is a 3-year project. what it is doing currently is to map the entire country, all the regions, and per crop. At the end of these studies, it is going to the data is going to be open source. You can access it anywhere in the world, where you should be able to know in a village like Bondali what is going to grow best there.
Is that where you come from?
Yes, exactly. I'm from Bondali. And what this study will establish with 3D mapping, verified, geolocated, what crop will do best in a village in Foni or a village near Wasu or somewhere in Tumanda. And these studies will establish the fertility, and in fact, it will now save us from blindly applying, NPK, which is nitrogen, potassium, and all that. It will specifically be able to tell you, okay, this area, the soil is deficient in magnesium or is deficient only in potassium. So it's nutrient specific, so that the farmer can just laser focus on this nutrient for that area. So the study is ongoing. It's under the soil fertility mapping project.
Mm-hmm. One criticism I heard also was that whereas in the Gambia you gave subsidized fertilizer to farmers, in Senegal they gave fertilizer free to farmers.
Who said they gave fertilizer free to farmers? Matter of fact, when the rainy season started, you had our announcement, our press release, urging the Inspector General of Police to arrest anybody who is found with fertilizer going across the borders. If fertilizers were being given for free in Senegal, who else will smuggle fertilizer from the Gambia across the border to take it to Senegal? This is just ridiculous. The cost of fertilizer in Senegal was announced a week before our announcement. So that just tells you that for anybody, for opposition elements to go around and say, us subsidizing fertilizer in the Gambia, countries like Senegal or some West African countries, we are giving fertilizer for free, is outright unsubstantiated. It's just untrue. Fertilizer was cheaper in this country than most countries in the sub-region. And also is more accessible. That explains why fertilizer was being smuggled from this country into our neighboring countries. So yes, we had the best and the most affordable, because you cannot go more than 10 kilometers anywhere in the Gambia without having had a fertilizer sales agent. So, and apart from the highly subsidized 27,000 metric tons that the government brought in, the government of the Gambia and the agricultural projects had as components farmer support, where over 10,000 bags of fertilizer have been given to farmers that have been found to be vulnerable and farmers that we are cultivating crops that we have priority, let's say rice. So rice growers in the entire Jahali Patal, which is the 2,400 hectares, 900 hectares of that were supported by the Roots project. Roots paid 80% of the cost of the fertilizer. The farmer only paid 20%. And was the same with the plowing services. They even gave them herbicide with the gears and everything. The rest of the hectare, the farmers had highly discounted fertilizer from other projects. The P2RS project gave fertilizer at no cost. It wasn't even subsidized. It was free. The Giraffe project gave seeds from Katong to Koina at no cost. So it is baseless for opposition elements to say fertilizer was given for free in Senegal or in Guinea. Fertilizer is cheaper here and more accessible in this country than any other country around us here.
Mm-hmm. This time not politicians. Economists also look at, our river and say government is not fully harnessing its potential to ensure all year agriculture. This is season for this,
right.
Crop.
Yes.
And then, you really harness the potential of the river to make sure that crop, is grown and right. Gives a good yield. Are you doing anything with the river?
Yes, we are. Actually, if you collect any of the newspapers today, there is a tender there for land development. And this is under the Roots project. And there's also one under the regional rice value. Under the regional rice value, what we intend to do is to develop 981 hectares of land that are going to be fully irrigated, and these pumps are going to be solar pumps, and the pump houses are going to be next to the River Gambia in all these sites that I talk about. In Jahali Pachar, it will be about 421 hectares in Jahali Pachar alone. But then we will be doing other places like Diabgu Batapa, many other settlements in URR and CRR. So just to let you know that we may have about 15 to 20 pump houses built right next to the River Gambia with solar-powered pump stations that will be at no cost to the farmers, because now if they are solar-powered, that means they can be irrigating their fields from dawn to dusk without having worrying about the cost of maintenance, like cost of fueling and all those. So this is in the works, and this is not something that I'm telling you we plan in 2026. It's already in the newspapers as evidence. The tender is out, and I think the tender is going to close by January 25th or so, and we intend to have this contract signed in early February, and I think we will have this thing delivered in 2025. So yes, we are doing something, and currently Jahali Pajar is a tidal irrigation, I mean with gates, with dikes, so we are taking advantage. And if you go to Sapo, we just developed a 30-hectare field, 15 hectares brand new by Bajam Construction, and these are irrigated with canals getting their water from the River Gambia, and the other 15 hectares is rehabilitated. This will be highly productive. They should be able to produce 2 to 3 times a year. And these are things that I'm telling you that any of the opposition element or media houses can go to Sapo today and see this thing and show it to the Gambian people. And I think I'll urge you and other media houses to help us in that.
Give us the millions to be able to travel around.
I'll talk to Information Minister to give you the millions.
No, but on a serious note, all these projects that are being planned, are you planning them with climate change in mind? Because it's bound to affect them somehow.
Oh, yes. In fact, we call it climate smart agriculture. The seeds that we give to the farmers, they are climate smart seeds. And that means they can do well in a scenario of flood. They can be drought resistant for a certain number of days. And also, that is why now we're talking about pumps that are going to be solar powered only, because climate change, agriculture is also a cause to climate change. And that is why climate smart agriculture is our new thing. And when we say solar power irrigation, because if you are not in control of the elements, that is when rain comes and when rain does not come, it means you cannot control your production and productivity. But if these fields, like we plan to start in 2025, they are all irrigated, that means we pump in the water when water is needed by the farmers, and also they're going to be done in such a way that the water, you drain the water out back to the river once the water is not needed, because when you come to time for harvest, you need a very solid ground for the harvesters to go in. So working on the solar power irrigation, making sure these perimeters are fully irrigated, both rainy season and dry season, making sure the seeds are climate smart. They are high yield, of course, high yield varieties, but also they can tolerate flood, but also they are drought resistant to some degree, means we are fully aware of the impact of climate change, but also its implication to agriculture.
Mm-hmm. Hearing you speak about agriculture the way you do, and hearing what people used to say about you just when you were appointed.
Right.
He's a nurse at best. I mean, what is he going to do in the Ministry of Agriculture?
Right.
You must be a fast learner.
You see, I mean, I think what people don't understand is your level of commitment determines your delivery. We've had, from independence to now, over 70% of the ministers of agriculture are not agricultural personnel. So yes, I was singled out because I'm a politician. If I was not a politician at all, it wouldn't be loud. But because I'm a politician, I say it raw to Usain Dabo and his team, so it will be convenient for me to be the, the drum. It's a cabinet of 20-something people. I mean, list of the ministries and try to match them. I mean, I have a degree in medicine. I mean, agriculture is about life. Half of agriculture is about Department of Livestock Services. Things relate. And our commitment to the president and to this country is unmatched. So for us, whether it's fast learning or not fast learning, we are determined to deliver. And if you are determined to deliver, you must find a path. You must find a way. And I have found that way. So I wasn't distracted with the noise that, okay, he is not from agriculture. And that's fine. But there have been ministers here who have not been from agriculture. And nobody talks about them. But because they are not politicians, nobody cares. And other ministers who are not politicians, nobody would care. But for me, I'm happy that they said that, because when they said that, for me, that was a template. That was a challenge for me. That, okay, well, out of all these other ones, it's not a problem. But for you, you are from a health background, and now they take you to Minister of Agriculture. This is going to be, big blunders. So for me, it was a challenge. All right, well, now I have to deliver to the Gambian people and prove the naysayers wrong. And that's exactly what I have done.
And how difficult was it at the beginning?
It was not difficult at all. For me, I have never found it to be difficult. I am not here to be a farmer. I am here to manage the people who support the farmers. I'm here to manage the Director Generals. These are experts. The Director General of Livestock is a veterinary doctor. The Director General of Department of Agriculture is an expert with over 30 years experience. The Director General of WALIC, he is an animal breeder. So my role wasn't to go down to the level of how many meters between two onions. That is not my role here. And that is what an agricultural personnel would go and learn in the college. My role is to ensure that those Director Generals have the resources they need, and they also deliver to the people. And I'm focused on that role.
Speaking to the UDP, they claim that anybody who criticizes the government, even if they have nothing to do with politics, are branded opposition and most likely UDP. I get the same sense. Everything I threw at you that smells of a criticism, you seem to point at UDP. And is this how politics in the Gambia is played?
Well, in your interview with Usainu Dabo, he said he has found that castigating your opponent is the most effective political tool. That is what he told you in the interview. So I guess take it from there. That's what he said. So if that is his template, I guess we'll play by his book. But nonetheless, I'm not mentioning UDP because it's personal or something. It's because they are the most vile group of politicians in this country. And even when they gave them the opportunity to prove themselves to be gentle, to be peaceful, look at Brikama Area Council. Look at how disorganized Yankuba Dabo has turned the West Coast to be. Look at how dysfunctional Yankuba and the Brikama Area Council is. They are so focused on petty politics, petty fights, focused on creating that dissatisfaction in the population, hoping for an uprising which never will be coming, and not focused on the work. Look at the issue of refuse in these municipalities. Look at KMC. Just parking up a few flowers around your office. Look, they talked about building roads. Which road has they built up to today? They're busy blaming the NRA.
Probably because the NRA is throwing hurdles in their way.
The NRA cannot throw hurdles because of their budget. It's unrealistic. They said $300 million. The cost of building a road is about 25 to 30 million per kilometer. So if Talib and his group announced to the KMC that they have a budget of 300 million to build roads in KMC, it's fallacy. In reality, that is 10 kilometers, if any. 10 kilometers within KMC. So he knows it is false. He is not intending to build any road. But he, as a politician, is good to make this announcement and look for a scapegoat. And his scapegoat now seems to be blaming NRA. But in reality, he knows that $300 million can only build at best 10 kilometers of road. President Barrow has built over 800 kilometers of road. So I think even before you talk about building those roads, I mean the basic issue of refuse in this municipality of KMC and West Coast is unaddressed. And it's worse in Banjul. Go to the market. During the Midi people, though, we went behind Alban Market. It is a mess. The entire streets of Banjul are paved by the government of President Barrow. Today, they are full of trash. And because the mayors or the Anife Municipal Council mayor or brigade, they will not collect refuse. They are busy politicking instead of delivering to the people.
I can't speak for Banjul, even though I was born in Banjul. I moved out of Banjul decades ago.
Right.
I live in KM. To his credit, fencing off that backwater dump site is already a major achievement for us residents of KM. Yes, refuse in KM is still a problem, but it has to be said, it's a lot better now than it's ever been. And you talk about...
Mr. Gomez, 80% of the people of KMC are paying donkey carts to collect their refuse, including yourself.
I do, yes.
Exactly.
I do.
So how better is that? I mean, majority of the population are collecting their own refuse. Fencing that backwater dump site is a good idea. But will that stop the smoke going into anybody's house? Will that stop all the scavenging birds coming in there? At this time, the municipality should have gone to a level of refuse recycling, where this thing will not be an eyesore, where it is enhoused in a factory where the refuse is sorted and recycled. That is the level they should have been.
But Talib is blaming your government. You're not giving him the subvention he needs. You're not giving it to Brikama Area Council. You're not giving it to any municipality. So you're supposed to be giving them, a subvention.
Out of all the 8 area councils, they are the only 3 that are not receiving.
All the Galga made, that issue that government is not giving them the subvention it's supposed to give to them.
The government is giving them what government needs to give them. Nonetheless, they are collecting millions from residents of these municipalities. Why are they not using those resources to deliver to the people?
Talib says that's where he is taking the 300 million for the roads. That,
which never has started and never will be in his term. Because up to now, he's just talking. The 300 million, he said he has signed a contract with some kind of a company. But up to today, we have not seen one shovel dug one hole in anywhere in KMC. I mean, they're just talking. He's not realistic. Even if we are to be real, it is just 10 kilometers. What will that do for KMC?
Central government is supposed to work with local government. How difficult is the government finding it, given the animosity between it and, you started with Brikama Area Council, KMC, Banjul, and where else? I think LRR.
Yes.
LRR. I mean, how difficult is government finding it to implement some of its projects and activities in these areas? For instance, when this road clearance started in KMC, it caused problems in Joshua, the starting point.
Look, I do not intend to speak for government, but
you are part of government.
Yes, happily so. And the area councils that are led by UDP mayors and UDP chairpersons are not bent on development, because for them,
they are not
bent on any kind of development, because the mindset they have is any development will give credit to the central government. If they collect refuse, the people are going to be happy. If they are happy, they are going to associate it, yes, with them, but it's going to be associated with the government. If they ensure the drainage is happening very well, there are no floods, it is credit to the government. But they are not bent on development. They are bent on petty politics. I mean, we have all seen the worst is West Coast anyway, Yankuba Dabo. He is the worst in terms of engaging in petty fights. And
with who?
Well, with anybody he can have. With anybody he can have a fight with. I mean, his intention is to be as chaotic as possible. That's why he was part and led the 3 years Jotna, to create as much chaos as possible. They're just looking for a scenario where the environment will be ungovernable, just as dictated by their leader, Usainu Dabo, who said he will make the country ungovernable. This is all part of their grand style, their package. When Usainu said he'll make Gambia ungovernable, I mean, you wouldn't think, he is not going to bring this guy down. Ungovernable means to be as chaotic as possible. And that grand package includes the lifestyle of Yankuba Dabo, making West Coast chaotic, underdeveloped, and it's the same thing in West Coast. Yes, Talib may sound gentle. He is not confrontational now, but of course he was. You know, we all remembered we had to get paramilitaries go into KMC. I mean, these people are.
Why did you need paramilitaries to get into KMC?
I mean, look, I don't have to go into that, but we all know when they denied the legitimately appointed CEO from our office, they denied Senator Martin from entering the place. And her appointment came from the ministry, from the council. That's the local government council. Appointment of CEO does not come from the mayor or the municipality. It comes from the local government council, commission. So they denied legitimate personnel entering our office. So the government must ensure every citizen is protected. And that was the reason. So whether it's Talib or it's Yankuba Dabo, they are bent on making Gambia or these municipalities as chaotic as possible, as a mean of distracting the population from their core function. Their core function of collecting the trash. Their core functions of, I mean, they know their roles. I assume they know their role. But they intend on being as dysfunctional and as chaotic as possible so that people are focused on that. And blaming the borough administration for everything. And now even announcing projects that in reality, they are unrealistic. They never intend to implement them. Let him implement 1 kilometer if he cannot do the 10 kilometers. At least a kilometer. But nothing has been done. It's just about talks.
If he invites you to the groundbreaking for, the commencement of road construction, will you attend just to...
Yes. In fact, I want to attend so that, I will be happy for every development in every part of the country. So if he truly is going to implement road construction in KMC, I'll be happy to attend. But it will never happen. I'm telling you this because he announced 300 million. What can 300 million do in road construction? I mean, very little. And besides, if you fail in doing the basic, that 80% of the residents of KMC are paying donkey carts to collect their trash. If you cannot handle that, you tell me now you'll handle millions of dollars a project. Talking about municipal bosses, talking about, issues that are they are grandiose. Yeah.
Granted, KMC, even if I say, waste management has improved, it still has issues of, waste management.
Yeah.
Brikama or West Coast, as you say, LRR, and Banjul. What about the other areas, URR, CRR,
right,
where, NPP supporting chairs, are in office? Are they cleaner? Because you hear that, as much as KMC might be dirty, it's still better than Basse.
You cannot compare Basse to KMC in terms of cleanliness. Basse is a lot more cleaner. And also, it's an issue of population. Look, there's a lot more activity in KMC. So I can understand the refuse in terms of amount.
So you're beginning to understand why fighting, refuse in KMC is a major issue.
It's a major issue, but they have not made an inch. I can understand. Look, being food self-sufficient in the Gambia is an issue, is a challenge. But you must, as a ministry, we must prove to the Gambian that, okay, last year, we produced this amount locally, this amount of hectare we have put under cultivation. This year, we have produced this amount of tons, this amount of hectare. It must be progressing. The issue of KMC and West Coast in terms of chairman and mayoral administration are backwarded. They are not progressive at all. The refuse collection...
There's some progress in West Coast because we hear they've acquired garbage trucks.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, this is when was he elected? This was in 22? Yes. When was he elected?
Yes, 2022.
22. Yes. Now we are coming to 2025. So he's going to get garbage. He's going to be out by 2026. So it's like it took him 3.5 years to acquire garbage trucks. Come on. Even the garbage trucks in KMC, how much, in terms of percentage, how much have they improved in terms of trash collection? I am paying a donkey card. You are paying a donkey card. I mean, majority of the people are doing so. And there's nothing in terms of digitalization, in terms of, sorting these things, in terms of recycling. It's just grabbing it, dumping it, and burning it, being environmentally criminal. I mean, go to West Coast. They are dumping it next to people's houses. We all had those complaints. I mean, they're not even environmentally conscious of what actions they are doing. So, look, I think the populations of West Coast and KM have seriously regretted voting in a UDP-led council. These councils are as bad as a UDP government would have been. So this is a microcosm of what Gambia can expect if UDP were to be in government. The Gambian people, I make it very clear, what you see in Yankuba Dabo and West Coast is exactly what you will see in Ousainou Dabo and a government. Chaos, confrontation, indiscipline. This is exactly what you would see in a UDP government. So thank God, God has given us a film of what a UDP government would look like. And we have all seen it. And that is why the majority of the Gambian people have rejected a UDP as a party and Ousainou Dabo as a party leader. And for sure, next election, Yankuba Dabo and Tali will be rejected because the population needs development in a peaceful environment. And they cannot offer either of that.
And who's the NPP going into that election with in 2026?
His Excellency President Adama Barrow is our undisputed candidate for NPP for 2026. And in fact, we are the only party who happily can announce our party leader and our candidate. I have challenged UDP at the Brikama meeting to even announce who is going to be their candidate. They cannot even announce a candidate as of now. You should have asked Ousainou Dabo if he was going to be the candidate. He cannot tell you a clear yes.
They select their candidates at a Congress.
Well, we all select candidates at Congress. They are going to have Congress next week, and still, well, we'll see what happens.
We'll find out, after the Congress has taken place. So, how do you see all this third-term debate?
Well, there is one thing I want every Gambian to know. The Constitution is a book that you do not have a choice to pick what you want, like this and dislike this part. You must respect it as a whole. There is no a single constitution in the world that every citizen is happy about. Even the constitution of UK does not have a constitution. The United States or any other country. This is the collective will of the country. This 97 constitution that we have went to a referendum in this country and passed overwhelmingly. I may not like certain parts of that constitution. You may not. Ousainou Dabo may not. Anybody else is the same. But we must respect it because that is the binding material that makes us Gambia. It is the guarantor of peace and stability of this country. As far as I know, the 1997 Constitution allows whoever is the president, not President Barrow, allows whoever is the president to go as long as the people of the Republic of the Gambia elects you. And until that change, I choose to respect the Constitution. And so doing, His Excellency President Barrow has the right to go in for a third term, or even more than that, if he chooses to, and is the one chosen by his political party. So, as far as the Constitution is concerned, the Gambian people knows this clearly well. I'm not talking about the opposition elements who are talking about no to third term. I'm talking about the genuine Gambian who is looking for peace and development. That the Constitution
so whoever is in opposition is not genuine Gambian?
No. Opposition, look, I was opposition. President Barrow was opposition. To be opposition does not mean you are not genuine Gambian. But to disrespect the Constitution, you are not a genuine Gambian. You cannot pick and choose what to agree, what to disagree with in the Constitution. If you do that, you are not genuine. If you have to respect the Constitution, you have to respect the Constitution as a whole. You cannot pick and choose. I mean, there are certain things in the Constitution that I may not agree with. So if the constitution allows the sitting president, I'm not saying President Barrow, if the constitution allows the sitting president,
The incumbent.
Yeah, to go for a third term or fourth term, so be it. If we choose to change the constitution, whatever is inculcated or encapsulated or encompassed in that constitution is what I will respect. But until then, the constitution we have allows the incumbent, His Excellency President Adama Barrow, to go in for a third term, and President Barrow is our candidate for 2026 on question, and he will go for his third term. And if we need or choose him to go for any other term, he so will. But until the constitution is changed, this is the constitution that I, as a citizen of the Gambia, will respect. And also urge every Gambian citizen to respect the constitution.
You keep making the point that unless the constitution is changed, of course, there are efforts by the government to change the constitution.
Exactly.
But of course, the draft has triggered all kinds of talk.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you were there, you're part of the people who came up with it. Can you understand the reaction of the people to the constitution?
Yes.
To the draft constitution, I should say. No, it's not a constitution.
Yes,
Just
for the draft constitution.
Yes.
Yes, and sadly, I heard Usainu call it the Barrow Constitution in your interview.
Barrow papers.
Yes, he called it a Barrow paper, which is very condescending. Look, he has to understand the 2020 constitution that was drafted and submitted to the National Assembly was rejected by the National Assembly, not by Barrow and his cabinet. It passed Barrow and his cabinet. It went to the National Assembly. It was rejected there. And they're still politicizing and blaming President Barrow for that constitutional failure, for the failure of that constitution to pass.
Yeah, they're saying he orchestrated the failure.
I mean, how can he orchestrate?
By dividing what was a majority UDP legislature.
Look, he appointed all the ministers in the cabinet at the time. If he wanted, the easiest way to have undermined it was to get it not past the cabinet. He's the chairman of cabinet. If he wanted to undermine the constitution, he would have undermined it in cabinet. Why allow it to pass from cabinet, go to National Assembly, and the UDP MPs voted against it, and they still cannot muster to accept that they made that constitution to fail. That constitution failed because of Usainu Dabo. And this constitution that we have...
It failed because of Usainu Dabo?
Yes.
How?
Because of who voted against it. Barrow had no MP at that time. There was no Barrow MP in the National Assembly. They were UDP voted members of parliament. Were they NPP MPs at that time? No. There was no NPP parliamentarian. They were UDP elected members of parliament. So whether they were not supporting the UDP agenda, that is a whole different discourse at another time.
Some had already defected.
Well, defected to who? To where?
Well, they were branded independents at the time because NPP had not come up yet.
Well, Mr. Gomez, they were UDP elected members of parliament.
True, absolutely, I agree.
They voted and collapsed that constitution. So let Usainu Dabo and his UDP take responsibility of the failure of that constitution first. And now coming to this 2024 draft, even before it is tabled, he has announced that his parliamentarians are going to vote against it. So he is not even willing for a compromise. Look, constitution is about paper and writing. What is written there is written by the people. Why don't we allow the process to start and we improve it as we go? We mature it. Usainu Dabo was the vice president when this government started. He was foreign minister. He had control over the National Assembly. Majority of the parliamentarians, even before we talk about this defection.
He said he did everything he could to avoid being seen as undermining the president, trying to play president.
Oh, but he succeeded in getting them to change age limit so that he can be vice president. Because that was the first thing he wanted his parliamentarians to do.
The change was not for him.
It was for him. I heard his interview.
No, it was for Fatoumata Tambajang.
No, look.
Initially.
Look, Fatoumata Tambajang is not over age. The bottom line is, he couldn't have been vice president. So...
Neither could Fatoumata.
They put Fatoumata as vice president. But for him to be vice president, he was over age. They had to change that.
He admitted it in
exactly.
the interview.
So, at that time, he could have been able to change most of these laws that he's criticizing today. He had the opportunity. He's the party leader of UDP, had majority in parliament.
So you don't believe him, apparently, when he said that he tried to avoid being seen to be undermining the powers of the president by trying to do certain things.
Look, he can say that to people who are not in this country or who are not following politics. We all know how he undermined the authority of His Excellency President Adam Barrow.
How did he do it?
I mean, that is a discussion for another day. But one thing for sure, he has always wanted to be president, and he shall remain wanting to be president forever. So that has never changed, even when he was a vice president or a minister. And of course, it was obvious to every Gambian, you know, how even after the presidential election, President Barrow was elected on a coalition ticket as an independent candidate. When they went into parliamentary election, the arrangement was these parliamentarians should have been on independent ticket, just like the president, so that everything would have been transition. But he was the one who insisted that these people are going to be party-based, knowing that the president was not party-based. The president was independent. But he wanted to get parliamentarians under the ticket of UDP that he can control the National Assembly and control authority. So for him to say he never acted in any way to undermine the authorities of the president, he can say that to people who are not politically inclined or who have not been paying attention. We have been paying attention. And we know he has tried to undermine the authority of the president, and he is up to today trying to undermine the authority of the president by sitting a former vice president saying that we will make this country ungovernable. That is treasonous in many places.
On this issue of constitution and compromise, just as you were saying, he should compromise by allowing this to go. He said, well, compromise should have begun with the government going back to the 2020 draft. That would have been, you know, the basis of a compromise, rather than come up with the 2022.
Don't you think that will be a serious disrespect to the institution of National Assembly? Look, I cannot present this document to you. You reject it as an institution. And then I bring it back to you. What am I trying to tell you? Am I shoving it in your throat? You see, if he thinks that way, President Barrow is somebody who believes in democracy and separation of powers and empowering of the institutions. The National Assembly rejected the constitution that was drafted in 2020. In an attempt to compromise, there were so many reasons why they rejected it. And there have been so much stakeholder consultation. Part of that consultation is to gather what are the most controversial points. We try to address those in the 2024 draft constitution. And he thinks we should still bring the document as it was. This was a document that was rejected by his MPs, led by him. And today he is asking us to bring the same one. Whether we brought that one which he rejected or bring a new one which he has announced he will reject, the man is bent on rejecting anything. So I don't think it matters what we brought, he is bent on rejecting whatever was brought. And I think it's premeditated with him.
Apart from the constitution, the 2025 budget also, I mean, has triggered a lot of talk. You have thrashed the issue of agriculture not being given its right allocation in the budget. When people point to how much is going to the office of the president, how do you react to some of the comments you hear?
I think most of the people who comment, let's say the regular Gambian citizen, I thank them for commenting because I want citizens to be engaged. It is good that citizens are paying attention to budgetary issues, But look, the budget that was sent to the office of the president is less than 5%. I mean, I think the percentage is out here. It's very reasonable. And when you say office of the president, unlike the misinformation coming from the UDP that the fees money of the president is $150,000 a day, because this is what they've been peddling out there. Look, the office of the president is not the president alone. This is where we have thousands of people working there. Can you imagine the amount of security personnel at the office of the president? Can you imagine all other support staff? when you talk about the budget, this 150, this talks about banquets. This talk about events with foreign visitors, foreign head of states or dignitaries. This is where cabinet issues are addressed. We are having a meeting almost every Thursday. We have a meeting. This is where all that costs come from. You imagine the energy cost that goes in here, the maintenance cost. All that thing goes into this so-called 150,000 that they took the budget and divided by 365 days and said this is the feast money. As if the office of the president, all they do is only feast money. I mean, it is the lowest they can go to misinform the citizenry. The amount allocated to the office of the president is as reasonable as you can have. Look, president, I mean, you heard Ahmad Ba even mention this in one of the tours. This is one of the most humble men you can find in this country. As a president, you go there, you have only 2 or 3 at the most, different dishes at the lunch table. Mostly 2, if at the most 3. I mean, this is at presidential level. In some other places, even at the governor's residence, you will have about 5-10 different dishes. But the man is so humble that what I eat at home is exactly what is being dished to him.
Would you like to see him have 5 to 10 different dishes on a daily basis?
Even if I did, he will not allow that. He is too humble to even get to that level. Unlike the opposition elements that would, if they come to this office, they'll be extra. I mean, their level of extravagance will be, it will be an eyesore to you. It will be unbelievable.
You think if people think that this government is using up a lot of money, we should wait until any of the opposition get into the office?
Exactly.
And then what will happen? We will be biting our fingers, wishing that you people never left office?
Of course. It is very obvious that, if not for a humble person like President Adama Barrow, if we have opposition elements like Mama Kande, Usainu Dabo, of course not fringe elements like Esafal or the others, who are just on the periphery. These opposition
Esafal sees himself as the next president.
Well, he is delusional, so it's understandable. It's okay for him to say those things. It's acceptable. The guy had less than 1% of the votes. I mean, we have 900,000 registered voters. In fact, 1% is 90,000, and he did not even get 90,000. He only got 1% of the people who even voted. So, he lost even Kersering where he lives. I live in Kersering. He lost even the police station where I live. There's not a single police station in the entire 1,881 polling stations in the Gambia. He did not even win one polling station. And he thinks he can be president. So for people like us who pay attention to the politics of this country, Esafal cannot even name you a village after Tabokoto. If you cross Bara, he cannot tell you the next village after Bara. And you think he can be president. President of where? I mean, but that's for us to handle, when we get to the field. But I'm just telling you that people like Esafal going to his Congress, describing that people who had nothing becoming into government, their stomachs get big overnight, enriching themselves, using very condescending languages. Look, if you have no respect for authority and you are looking for authority, you never shall be there. And when you are, people are not going to respect you. So the language that Esafal spoke at his Congress is unacceptable.
As a lawyer,
it's borderline rude.
As a lawyer, you'd think that he would know what language to use. Maybe he's sure of what he's saying.
Well, the language is not illegal, but it's immoral. It's one thing to speak something that is legal, but it's another thing to speak language that is immoral. Slavery was not illegal, but slavery was immoral. Right? So it's one thing to be illegal or immoral. His language was legal, but it's immoral for him to speak like that to authority.
As we begin to round off this conversation, we've already done 90 minutes. How do you see the opposition in this country? Of course, we know how, what you think of UDP. Right. I've heard SFL in there. I've heard GFA in there. What about the others?
There was. I had Mama Kande say no to Tata. I mean, why will he say no to Tata? Look, if they are sure of their strength, and the people are going to vote for them.
Again, let me just say, just as you say, slavery was not illegal, but it was immoral.
Yes.
In present day politics,
yes,
third term is not illegal.
Yes.
But it's not just taken
Just
to be good practice.
Or good practice, say who? Germany does not have a term limit. Are we more advanced than Germany?
No, UK does not have term limit.
UK, yeah, that's where I'm coming. UK does not have term limit. Are we more advanced than UK? So when you say best practice, from where?
I mean, I mean, even the constitution you're working on will limit it to 2 terms. So let's just say that's the acceptable modern way of governance. But let's move on with your views on the other part, on the opposition generally.
No, I think the opposition in the Gambia is not genuine, because what we expect from the opposition is inform the citizenry clearly, give them correct information, inform them of what you think is not going well, but inform them of what's going well. But if they choose not to inform them of what is going well, do not misinform them. And we don't expect opposition leaders to disrespect the constitution. For any opposition leader to say no to third term, you are rebellious. You are going against the constitution. If you are an opposition leader, you say no to third term, that means, okay, I don't respect this part of the constitution. What else do you respect in the constitution? If every Gambian has the option to choose what to pick and choose in the constitution, will we be a society? We are not going to be a society. We are governed by a set of rules, and those set of rules are called constitution. So the fact that the opposition itself should have come and say, look, yes, I may not want Barrow to be a candidate for third term. However, the constitution allows it. What I will tell you as voters, vote for me. If I become the president, I will work to ensure that it is embedded in the constitution that nobody goes beyond 2 terms. Then that is genuine. But to go and tell the population that not a third term, you are inciting some kind of a riot or something against third term, it's not genuine. And so I will not find them genuine.
To his credit, President Barrow, he launched the national dialogue. But having spoken to the opposition and talking to you now, you ask yourself, has it worked? The national dialogue, the spirit of, building bridges across political divides. It seems to have been an exercise in futility.
Look, I don't think it's an exercise in futility. The purpose of the dialogue was to create a platform, not only for politicians. Look, that platform includes religious leaders. We have different religions in this country. It includes farmer organizations. It includes issues between farmers and herders. So it encompasses a lot of flashpoints. Flashpoints are not only UDP, NPP, GDC, A, B, and C. There are so many potential flashpoints when you are governing a society. And we think this dialogue has addressed a lot of those flashpoints. The political divide exists because we have an opposition that is extreme.
Extreme?
Yes, extreme. I mean, if an opposition, you said Dabo announced in Gunjur that local government election, had they lost, they will announce their own results. That's when I said at our NPP bureau, if you announce your own result, we will declare you a rebel and then you will be addressed accordingly. How can you, a statesperson, say we are going to announce our own results, undermining the credibility of the IEC? Undermining credibility of IEC is tantamount to creating civil unrest. So these are statements that we found extreme. For a statesman to say we'll make this country ungovernable, for a statesman to say this constitution we will vote against it, for a statesman to say not a third term, it's extreme. Exactly.
And perhaps finally, as number 2 in the National People's Party, when you read a report like the one just issued by Afrobarometer, that almost 8 out of 10 Gambians say the country is not being run properly. I mean, it's not being steered in the right direction.
Right.
How does that make you feel? Because you happen to be part of that government as well.
Yes. Actually, I think the Minister of Information already responded to this question. I will just echo what he said, that we 100% disagree with the survey. We think, and of course convinced, that the survey is biased, that it must have been conducted around opposition elements in populations that are most likely to be opposition. I can go today and get 10,000 people in a survey who will answer and get me 90% that the country is being steered in the right direction. But I can also go to areas where I can conduct a survey of 10,000 people and get 80% of them to say the country is being steered in the wrong direction. I don't know how they got their samples for the survey. I don't know what locations they did that, but I live and breathe in this country. We've just concluded a tour of the entire nation. We speak to every passing segment of the society. And for them to have 80% of the population think that the country is being steered in the wrong direction is entirely false.
Honorable Demba Sabally, how would you like to conclude this 100-minute conversation?
It's first is to thank you very much, Peter. This is the first time we meet face to face, and I want to thank His Excellency the President and the entire government for creating the conducive environment for interviews like this and lot others to occur. And thank your followers, but also thank our colleagues at the NPP, that is the party, that is the ruling party. And again, thank the Gambia farmers for their productivity and steadfastness in our drive towards food self-sufficiency. But my advice to the entire population is, we may be divided politically. I'm NPP, you can be any other party. But we have one major thing in common, that is the Republic of the Gambia. And there's only one thing that can make us lose the Gambia, and that's violence. So we must be peaceful. Peaceful in speech and peaceful in action. People in authority must speak peace and act peacefully. And my advice to people in authority is, let us speak peace and let us act peacefully. We may be divided politically, which is normal and encouraged. But let us view Gambia as the only asset that we have in common and the asset that we must all jointly protect. And protecting the Gambia means making Gambia the most peaceful country, as has His Excellency been awarded as the most peaceful president. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right.